everyone. My name is Dr. Hal Bradley. I would like to ask each and every one of you that if you enjoyed these shows, please hit like, share, and subscribe after you view the show. Thank you very much.
Well, hello, world. Welcome to another episode of the Crisis Victory Show. My name is Dr. Hal Bradley, executive producer and host of the show. And today I'm overwhelmingly excited to introduce to you a gentleman from the country of Australia. He has worked in law enforcement for many, many years, and he has a very unique story that he's going to share with you today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Derrick McManus. And Derrick, I'd like to thank you for taking your time today to come on my show.
Hal, knowing just a little bit about you, it's an honor to be here and be able to chat with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As I understand it, if it's okay, there's a short video that we'd like to introduce to the audience. And Pete, if you're in the background there, if we could run that clip first before his interview.
Star Force officer Derrick McManus was on a routine job to arrest a known fraudster, Tony Grosser. Accompanied by 4 other Star Force members and another policeman with a camera filming the footage you're now watching, they were to arrest Grosser because he failed to show up at court.
The police, Mr. Grosser, open up, please.
But within minutes of arriving at Grosser's property, the routine arrest turned sour and Derrick's life would change forever.
Grosser, it's the police.
What eventuated was, and still is, South Australia's biggest siege. Within minutes of arriving, McManus was gunned down. Over the next 40 hours, 2,000 rounds were fired.
Derrick's down. Call some backup. Get right out of it, Mum. Derrick, where are you?
Yeah, Derrick, that sent chills down my spine. I too have been in that situation. And you asked me before the show started, how am I still alive? Well, let me reverse that question. How are you still alive, sir?
Well, that is a question that, like you, I get asked an awful lot. I've spoken to doctors about how I'm still alive because I was hit 14 times with
Jesus.
7.62 or 308 caliber. And for those who don't know weapons, it was a Chinese military weapon and firing Chinese military rounds. I was hit 14 times with either bullets or shrapnel. And I had 2 severed arteries. I had 2 bullets in my stomach, 2 bullets in my left thigh. One went through my right Achilles tendon, and other lesser injuries. And I was lying on the ground for 3 hours before they could get me out. The first doctor to get to me has actually been interviewed by the Adelaide News, and he actually said on a news broadcast that all the textbooks say that Derrick should be dead. The only reason Derrick's not dead is he hasn't read the textbooks. Now, I'm quite happy to be ignorant, to be quite honest. But this is what I talk about these days, and this is why I get invited onto podcasts such as this. I believe the reason I'm alive is a little ounce of luck right at the very beginning, right? A bullet half an inch one way or another, there's no way in the world I would have had any option as to whether I was going to be fighting or not fighting. If it had hit me in the head, it could have been a very different situation. If it had hit an organ that wasn't able to be repaired or just completely bled out, it could have been very different. So there was this little iota of luck. But after that, it was all down to mindset. And it was about controlling panic, controlling shock, slowing my heart rate, slowing my breathing for 3 hours while I lied on the ground.
Well, you know, Derrick, what I noticed in the video, and thank you for sharing that, by the way, was immediately was your reactionary response. You didn't freeze. You didn't panic. You knew you were in a life and death situation within that first instant. And I love how you did that. Both Pete and I have been in similar circumstances, so we can equate to the video that we saw. When it comes to life and death, there is no hesitation. There is only experience and response that has been ingrained in us over years of being in those type of situations. So I truly commend you for that. And I thank God that you're still with us. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you, Hal. You hit on a very important word there, and that's experience.
Yes.
A lot of people say, I could never do what you did. They wouldn't be expected to do what you or I did because they don't choose to put themselves in those situations. you chose to get into a situation.
Yes.
Pete chose to get into situations. I chose, and I prepared myself for it, and I got as much experience as I could, and I put my mind in the right mindset to be able to manage it. And that's why I was able to handle that. When I talk to people, I talk about their challenges and how do they prepare for their life, their choices, their circumstances. It's all the same principles, but we can apply it to anywhere in life.
Well,
but that
you know,
having experience.
Derrick, it also goes back to the younger years at the beginning when you probably entered the academy. You paid attention to the discipline necessary to learn the next phase, the next stage of that which you would one day be confronted with, and one day you were. And I go back to 1972 when I left basic. I went to Tigerland, Fort Polk, Louisiana, and I went through a very specific training cycle there that was so impactful that by the time we were done, Congress killed it, so it could never be done again. But I went through jungle survival school. I went through prisoner of war camp training. And here, decades later, I became a prisoner in a foreign country. And what kept me alive was remembering what I learned when I was a 17-year-old kid. So experience also has to be compounded with training when you're finding yourself in life and death scenarios, such as the three of us have found ourselves in. So very fascinating video, by the way. The first thing when that first shot went off, I watched your response. And that, sir, is experience. You can't be taught that in a textbook. That is reactionary based on the understanding, if you will, of that moment where there can be no hesitation. It can only be bodily reflection. And that, sir, is what saved your life. Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It was the ability to be able to respond. If I'd just gone into panic mode and let the world take care of it, I'd be dead. Yeah, no two ways about it. Yeah.
So briefly, tell us about your history of the work that you do. Basically, to my audience, to have an understanding, you were kind of like on what we have is SWAT here in America. What is your reactionary title for that type of law enforcement that you were engaged in?
Our name for that law enforcement is STAR Group, STAR, Special Task and Rescue. And we are similar to your SWAT as in that we are police, but the job that we do is similar to your Delta Force. We do high risk arrest, we do hostage siege, but we also do dive operations as well. So I was a tactical underwater recovery diver and just tactical offensive diver. I was VIP security to all the important people that came to the state, including the Queen from England. But we also do cliff rescue, cave rescue, mine rescue, helicopter operations. And so it equates to Navy SEALs. I was trained by the military equivalent of the Navy SEALs here in Australia, our SAS. I was trained by them in counterterrorism. So our skill level was multifaceted.
Fascinating.
I found it fun. I just found it fun.
Yeah, we're all thrill seekers, aren't we, sir? Yeah, you know what? I had silver wings on my chest at the age of 17. I was already in the military, jumping out of airplanes, and got pinned at 17. And you know, all your life that stays with you. There's a driving force. Pete carries it. You carry it. I carry it. And look we're all old guys today. I'm 71. I don't know how old you are, but
I'm 66. I'm not shy to talk about it.
But you know what, Derrick? We're all going to sit on a porch one day in a rocking chair, and people are going to, why the hell do these guys have a gleam in their eye and a smile on their face?
The grandkids are going to be sitting on the lap, and they're going to be laughing at the stories as well.
That's wonderful. Okay, I want to get a little bit further on into your. How long were you in law enforcement, sir?
Only 42 years.
My God.
I was getting used to it by the end.
42 years in service.
Yeah.
My God. How long were you on?
Just to put that into context, I got shot when I was 35. I was 2.5 years doing physical rehab, then went back to fully operational in the police and retired in 2018.
Do you mind if I ask what region of Australia you're in?
Yeah, South Australia. So you've got the East Coast with Sydney and Brisbane and Melbourne, and you've got the West Coast with Perth, and then you've got Adelaide right down the bottom, South Australia.
I want to share something with you real quick. This, as you know, I'm an action adventure novelist, and 17 years that I was undercover, I was in and out of a lot of embassies. I would be sitting with spec op teams, with spies, with SEALs, all of these, and we would always separate from the other people in the cafeteria because we knew that we were different, and what we would want to share with one another isn't something you disclose to the world. But I actually wrote episode 9 of the 11 books I've written that are action adventure novels to honor law enforcement people. This one right here, Operation Australian Cartel. And I did go through 4 different regions of Australia, and the impact that the cartels have had on your wonderful country. And I tell you, I've got to get a copy of this to you. I think you would immensely enjoy it.
Yeah, that looks sounds fascinating.
These are about one man's war against the cartels. It was about my story in the beginning, but then what I did was honor 17 years of listening to other people sharing theirs. And Australia actually came into play. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, no, that sounds fascinating.
Yeah, what a fascinating country you live in. And it's generational in growth, because originally it wasn't looked at by the Sinaloa cartel or the Colombian cartels. It became because of the development globally that El Chapo, a person I personally knew, started expanding out all around the globe. Australia was one of those places where he started making dump sites there too. So that's how my interest became generated. But to talk to someone with decades of law enforcement experience in Australia, this is definitely a first for me. And I'm still thinking about that video. I apologize. I know what that feels like in that moment of near death. And
it's very rare to be able to capture that and be able to replay that. That absolute moment of being hit 14 times.
How do you deal with that today, Derrick? How are you?
I will tell you straight up, I'm not flippant about being shot. I don't disregard seriousness, the impact or anything else, but I can be light-hearted about it. The video does not upset me, except if I watch it without red wine and cheese. If you watch a good movie, you've got to have red wine and cheese.
I love it.
But I go back to, I'm not flippant about it. I know what that video means to other people, the impact it has on other people. When other people watch it, they are traumatized by it. But we go back to that word experience, exposure, and preparedness for what we can realistically expect to encounter. And that was one of the things that I knew was going to happen, or potentially happen, I should say.
Yeah, you handled yourself as a true professional. You did very, very well, Derrick.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you still tied into law enforcement there in Australia?
No,
are you retired?
I'm completely retired these days. I get a pension from the police, but I call myself the pensioner who works full time. So I'm over here in the United Kingdom with Pete. Oh no, Pete's gone home again. But that's where I met Pete, over here in the United Kingdom. I get the privilege to be able to travel the world and talk about the story, and then talk about the lessons that I learned out of the story and how that impacts other people.
Pete couldn't get to me quick enough after he had talked to you over there in London. No, seriously, Derrick. He knew that the story.
Great guy.
Yeah, I love Pete with all of my heart. He is a warrior, a real warrior. And
we're a real person too.
Yes, he is.
He's got that beautiful dual side. He's a real warrior when he needs to, and just this beautiful character all the other times. So, and I've only known him that space of time.
And you know, Derrick, when he was over there in London with you, I asked him 3 times to go have bangers and mash. He rejected my request. Too funny. That's what I had when I was in London, England in 1972. That was my big memory of it, was how damn good bangers and mash was. Well, listen, as we continue on in the story today, you have other friends that you're probably still associated with that are in the law enforcement community that are still active. How is it today in law enforcement compared to back when you were actively engaged and involved?
I don't believe the job has changed at all. Over the period of time, over a couple of 100 years, I don't think the job has changed in its basic principles. It is still police going out and chasing bad guys who are doing the wrong thing. Yes, they've got more technology these days. Yes, they've got better weaponry these days. Yes, they're doing drugs a different way. but the
Yes.
basic principle of police chasing criminals is exactly the same. And we enjoy it as much today as they have in the past. It comes down to we want to see people doing the wrong thing brought to justice and not
Yes.
impacting the rest of community. The biggest challenge we have in law enforcement these days is morale. The people in the
Interesting.
job,
Huh.
yeah, morale is the biggest challenge we've got
Wow.
all over Australia at the moment, not just South Australia. It's impacting the rest of the states as well.
Can you define that a little bit more in detail, please? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I believe, and this is I believe, it's not statistics and it's not studies, it's I believe, and this is from talking to a lot of coppers. I believe that it's come down to the fact that when I first joined the job back in when did I join? 1986. I graduated in 1989. So my first years of service were in the 90s. Police had each other's backs. If something happened,
Yes.
we were there for each other. We were always there for each other. And you knew that your brothers were there and they were going to look after you. And even if you got injured, they'd be right there with you. These days, it's not quite that way. We find more often now that when we join the job, we make a promise we are going to do our best and we will look after everything we can. Management make a promise that if anything happens to you, we'll look after it. The
Yes.
people, the operators are keeping their promise, but as soon as something happens to them, management are backing out. And this is causing a moral injury to those guys who
Absolutely.
believe they should be getting looked after. And it is that moral injury. Physical injury is one thing, but it's that moral injury. It's that deep, cutting, piercing moral injury that is bringing the morale down. We're actually having trouble recruiting people at the moment.
I want to share something with you real quick, Derrick, and thank you
Yeah.
for that. That explanation was spot on. I had a man, a federal agent who was with U.S. Customs, and when I first walked in back in 1993, he was assigned to me, and he was a greenhorn agent at that time, hadn't been in the business very long. And over the course of many years, I did the prison time. I got out. We worked in foreign operations together, and we were in the United States. I'm not going to disclose the area, but one night we were doing a takedown, and I was in the back seat of a car, and I was counting the kilos in a bag, and I made the code that they would overhear, and then they would come in and hit the vehicle. The guy that was driving the vehicle was a high-level cartel player. He caught on to what was going on, and he pulls a pistol out, and he's aiming at my head to fire off the shot. And I remember opening the back door and rolling out of the car and using the car as protection. And that's when the two vehicles came in and they hit the car and got him. But when I was immediately picked up off the ground, thrown in the back seat of a sheriff's car, and that agent, now get this, Derrick, that agent threw his body over me because we didn't know if there was a sniper on site or not. And this was the very man that when I was originally walked in. That's talk about commitment, talk about being there for one another, talking about a brotherhood that is earned, not given. That was earned because I used to be the enemy. Yet that I will never forget that as long as I live, how he covered my body with his own. So the reason I brought that up to you earlier about your interpretation of what's going on in law enforcement is with the Sinaloa drug cartel, who I was with for many, many years, they evolve. They learn different tactics. They learn different strategies. We were taught like the torture techniques that were introduced in the late 80s, early 90s to the cartels in Mexico were instituted as a result of what Don Pablo Escobar's people learned from the CIA, who were operational in Central America at that time, the Salvadorians and all of this part of the region. So are you saying then that law enforcement does not evolve in accordance to the evolution of crime?
Law enforcement has certainly evolved in relation to the evolution of crime. The crime syndicates evolve faster than what we do. We are always responding to what their developments are. The problem we have in relation to morale is that the police department is devolving in how they look after their own people.
That was my take. That's what I wanted to pick up out there. You know, that is very, very dangerous, in my opinion. And morale is everything. A brother has to know he can trust a brother when you're out there in the field and you're operating in that capacity. But not only that, the political aspects that become involved, as you were saying about the demoralization of the forces that are working on the front lines, they have to have the ability to trust those that serve above them. And this becomes
absolutely.
a highlighted concern, because if we see a moral faction breaking down within the assemblage of the law enforcement agencies that are looking out for one another, how do they repair that? How the hell do you repair that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to reflect back to at the time that I was shot, I was lying on the ground for 3 hours, fully conscious, monitoring my body, monitoring my mind, all that sort of stuff. The one thing that I knew I could absolutely rely upon was that my mates from Star Group and from the rest of the police would be in there as soon as they safely could. For the 3 hours I was on the ground, I had absolutely no doubt. Unfortunately, I'd like to think it was the same right now. I would like to think that, but the people on the ground are doubting it. And I'm not saying it's not that way, but they're doubting it. And so if they doubt that they're going to be backed up, they're going to be less committed to following through and doing the things that we should be doing.
What about, as an example, yourself coming forth and speaking on behalf of those that are on the front lines to this day, to the higher up people? Give an explanation, if you will, of what you're receiving and what you're hearing from your mates, and see how that can possibly impact change.
The politics behind everything at the moment. The irony is here in South Australia. I'm not in South Australia. I'm in the UK. When I'm in South Australia, the management of the police will not engage with me.
That's ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense to me, Derrick. You have 40 years of experience. You were shot 14 times. For God's sakes, you have an invaluable insight that becomes reflective to just exactly how strategic things need to be handled and maneuvered with the men that are out there on the front line kicking in those damn doors.
Absolutely. To frustrate you, to frustrate you to another level. When I first started doing the speaking that I'm doing, I was doing it voluntarily for blood service, to say thank you to blood donors. And I was doing it to Rotary clubs and service clubs and all that for free. And then an organization offered to pay me $200 to relay the same message to them. And as soon as the corporates became involved, South Australian Police tried to close me down. And that continued for my entire career. But they won't engage with me now, even though corporate schools, mental health organisations have me coming in to talk. South Australian Police won't, to the extent, now where was I going with that? To the extent that interstate police departments fly me interstate, have me talk to their people, but South Australia still won't. The one thing that I feel very proud of and committed to is that the reason I stand on this earth is because of what police did for me. How they looked after me. They put their lives on the risk. They put their lives on the line to save mine. And so no matter where I go in the world, I charge corporates and they pay quite nicely, but in relation to police, I will never charge police. They'll pay for my accommodation and travel and things, but I will never charge them for me delivering to them. It's my way of giving back. It's my way of creating community, so that we will look after each other that little bit more.
I have nothing but respect for that choice and that decision that you do, because you are right, sir. How can you, in any way or any form at all, not look at the men and women in law enforcement that you stand up in front of, sharing your story and your experience, most importantly, and they see the motivation of you taking your time, your personal life, and coming forth trying to save theirs through your experiences. And I just totally commend you on that, Derrick. That's not very common, believe it or not. I've been doing these interviews for a while, but I've got over 20 years around law enforcement myself, and for someone to step forth on a sensitive subject of your magnitude is very commendable. And you know what? You are helping some of those law enforcement people. You are. They get to hear
I have no doubt. I have no doubt at all.
I'm very proud.
I talk on the subjects of personal performance, professional performance, but I also talk about mental health as well. right?
Yes, very
Talking about
important.
PTSD, anxiety, depression, questioning yourself as to, oh my God, I've seen a really dangerous situation. Should I stay in the police department or should I go and find another job? And the strength of making the right choice that, do you know something? I joined the police. I'm finding it's a little bit more dangerous than I thought. I want to go and become an accountant or whatever it might be.
Of course.
You've got to follow your passion. And it's a greater strength to be able to say, I'm moving away from this because I feel like it's going to endanger my mental health, and go and find something else I'm happy with. It's a very powerful thing to be able to make the right choice, and more people need to be able to do it.
Brother, it's almost impossible to become the lamb when you've been the lion. It doesn't leave us. It doesn't. You know, people ask me all the time, as a pastor, a senior pastor, and they say, Pastor, you know, what you used to be, how do you separate from that? And I said, I never separate that. I was a gangster. I was a criminal. I lived a horrific life during those 15 years in the cartels. But what I've done is, through that experience and aging in life naturally, and most importantly of all, getting an academic understanding of how to present our experiences. My 10 years to get my doctorate degree, for instance, was just as important as 15 years in the cartels before I became an operative. And I'm here to tell you, you got to find a balance with every bit of that, to where you can not only be motivational when you are delivering your message to the community, but to have an assurance within yourself that this is the correct message to deliver.
Absolutely. And again, I'd like to pick up on a couple of words that you just mentioned. You said it's hard to become the lamb once you've been the lion.
Yes.
Now, if somebody chose to move out of policing or out of law enforcement or out of military and go and become an accountant, but they're absolutely passionate about that, they will become the lion within accounting, within financial advice. They will become the king of that castle. And somebody who is absolutely passionate and a master, I've got admiration for them no matter what they do. They will become the lion in that environment.
Well, that was my point early on, because what we do is we take our former experiences and transgress into that which we become later in life. You know, I don't think that I would be the pastor that I've been, the hospice chaplain that I have been, had I not lived the years that I had lived when I was on the other side of law enforcement, the other side of the fence, so to speak. The horrors that I witnessed, the horrors that I was involved with, everything manifests in a later state in life as we mature in our life to become of benefit as we communicate to others and try to do the good that we are put here to do in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would describe you as the lion in the pastor world. You are passionate about it, and you're at the top of your game.
Well, you know, Jesus. No doubt. And I thank you for that, because I want to give the glory to God, not to me. But I'll tell you something. The 2 commandments Jesus gave us that I speak at other churches about this very thing. One is to love God the Father above all things. But Derrick, the other is to love one another, period. And we complicate that because we are born of a sinful nature. So I get the struggle, but it becomes pretty easy once clarity enters into our realm of understanding, and to love one another, even your enemy, brother. When I came out of that coma after I was left for dead and I woke up in a hospital, the first thing I did was remember to myself to not only forgive that guy, but to carry a passion of love and understanding of why he did it. Hell, I was nothing but an address and a name on a piece of paper. He was just doing the job. I know what those jobs are. I've been around that. But the point is this. That is, to me, was the confirmation that I had finally achieved where I needed to be, most importantly in my life, was not only forgiving, but having passion for that man's situation also. And that's what we need to carry on as we share our stories like you're doing today, Derrick. The confirmation, if you will, that no matter what we have gone through, we need to carry that later to benefit society and humankind. And that's how I look at my past. And that's how I look at the years that I was in organized crime. I look at that today as a blessing. When I get a rape victim dropped off at my house, or I get an overdose case dropped off here, I go right into action mode instantaneously, because I have a relationship with that and an understanding of that community. And over the decades that I've worked in that community now, and have freely and lovingly giving myself to every single one of them, you don't judge another person ever. What you do is try to understand a formula that may exist that will benefit that other person. And what is that? Example. Be the example. It's pretty simple. And those of us that have survived extreme, like Pete, like you, like myself, we become an example, because when people listen to us, Derrick, they believe it because they can sense it. They can tell that we have been there, that we have been through these motions, that we are now trying to protect them and guard them from making those similar journeys in their own life, in their existence. And I feel feel strongly about it.
Yeah,
Very.
absolutely. I'd like to pick up on the fact that you said you have an understanding of the reason why that person did that, because everybody's got a reason, and if you can talk about that reason, and if you believe the reason for doing it is wrong, then you can mold that reason to something more rational.
Yes.
But you've got to start off from a place of understanding first, and so I absolutely love that.
Thank you for picking up on that, because that was the message that I was putting in there, and you caught it, which means other people will too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I got to tell you, we're getting close to the end of the interview, and I just want to share with you that I feel and I sense a brotherhood between us. I have such a great respect for what you have survived and gone through, sir. And I'm not trying to toot your horn or blow whistles at you. What I'm trying to say is, after surviving your near-death experience, look at what you have transpired into and what you're doing with it today. My God, it's wonderful. You're going to save lives by coming forth and sharing your testimony, because someone's going to grasp a piece of that conversation, and they're going to find themselves in a critical moment. And like that video that you shared on my show, the moment you got hit, the way that you responded, it was unnatural to somebody not trained, extremely obvious to those of us that are trained. And you know, what saved your life was impulse. You did the right thing in that right moment. You didn't panic. You didn't go into that shock mode, flight or fright. None of that existed to you. I watched you. I watched that video closely. And what I saw was reactionary, based on experience, training, and then how you talk about how your mates came to your aid while they're still doing the insertion into the target site that you guys were located on in that moment. Yet there were brothers there taking care of you, I'm sure, suppressing wounds, trying to stop the bleeding, doing whatever they could to keep you calm. And in that moment, that
would have been nice. However, I went down the side of the house when you listen to that video. I went down the side of the house, and I got shot at the side of the house. The guys at the front of the house moved away, and they were unable to get back to me.
I didn't know that.
No, and I was on the ground by myself.
Oh my God.
The video actually goes on further, and you see the guys talking, and the sergeant is giving the commands. Call out to Derrick. Find out where Derrick is. We've got to get to Derrick. But because of what the shooter was doing, they weren't able to. And the way the sergeant's talking about, find out, we have to get back to Derrick, that gives more impetus to the fact that I had absolute faith that my mates would be doing everything they could. I couldn't hear what they were doing, but I knew that they would be trying. The only thing that stopped them was the reality that the shooter had a better, stronger position than what they did. And so it's too dangerous to come back in. So they had to call for backup, and it took 3 hours for backup to get there. That's why I was lying on the ground for 3 hours. But for that 3 hours, absolute faith, the boys would do everything they possibly could. And if you can get your head around this, in fact, you would be able to get your head around this. If I had died and been able to come back and do an analysis of the job and make a decision as to whether they were right or wrong not to come in, and I died because of that, their decision not to come in would have been logical and smart and wise.
You were there. You were there.
I have complete understanding of the fact that they weren't able to get back to me.
Listen to that respect, that tone of respect in your voice, with the clear understanding of the whys.
Thank you. Thank you.
What a survival. Well, listen, we're going to wrap up here. I'd like to know, Derrick, if you would share a final thought, a reflection, or a message to our audience, so they would be able to walk away from this interview today and be able to carry something like you have placed inside of me and Pete. I'm just so proud.
Thank you, Hal. I talk about what I call human durability, and that's our ability to sustain optimal performance. And sustaining optimal performance is very different to sustaining peak performance. Peak performance, if you try to sustain it, it will lead you into burnout. So what we've got to get our head around is, what's the very best we can do in any given situation, right? And this is a very different way of looking at high performance, a very compassionate way of looking at high performance, while still demanding the very best you can do. And to be able to do that, I like to talk about 5 drivers. The first one is retain a sense of optimism. Right?
Yes.
Wherever we are at this particular time, maybe an absolute garbage place. What's better in the future? What can we look forward to? And this is what you did when you went back into investigating the cartels. You were looking at what better position can I create for the world if I can take these cartels down. So a sense of optimism. The number 2 is our belief that we can influence the ability to achieve that sense of optimism. Number 3 is have meaning. In whatever you do, you have meaning. And every part of your story that you have shared with me as we've been chatting has meaning behind it. Every part of it has a deep meaning, which gives you the ability to drive yourself. The fourth one is some sort of plan, some idea of how you're going to manage if things go wrong, or and particularly if things go wrong, but also if things go right as well. What's your plan? How are you going to be able to manage it? Just having that some idea of what you're going to deal with, some idea of what it's going to make you feel like, and then how you'll handle that gives you the ability to take action and keep moving forward. And the last one is a little bit about what you are doing with this show right now. The 5th one is support. And some of it is about us supporting others, but most of it is around being willing to throw our hand in there and say, do you know something? I need some support. I need help with getting through this mentally, physically. I want to take on a big challenge and I'm not really sure about it. Throw your hand in the air and ask for support. Absolutely essential. So I thank you for what you're doing by supporting other people with this show.
Thank you, Derrick, so very much. And as we close out here, I just want to say, God bless you. God bless those that you love. God bless those that you don't even know, brother. God bless one another, most importantly, in these struggling days we're all in. And sir, nothing but respect for you. Nothing but respect. Thank you so very much for being on my show today. And please stay on air after we click off here for just a moment, if you would. Please.
Yeah, thank you. How that respect goes back the other way as well. Thank you as well.
Thank you, brother.
Okay, folks. Well, that wraps up another episode today. And I'd like to take this moment to thank each and every one of you for taking your time to catch our show. Now, if you like these shows, I would ask that you would please hit like, share, and subscribe. It's so important to us that we get these messages out, and we understand that these are graphic, almost toxic interviews. But, you know, this is the kind of impact that we feel is needed in order to make sure that people understand the significance of the problems that we are confronted within our own country and around the globe. So I'm going to say at this time that I love you all. God bless you all. Hasta luego, y vaya con Dios, and go Victors.